Howdy and welcome back to the Ineligibles podcast. My name is Will Stone. His name is Chase Caldwell. Just the two of us today, but it is Bama week, one of the most exciting weeks for an A&M fan. Typically, it's a week that I look forward to every year. We especially did this season. We talked about it all summer. If you could get to the Bama game, preferably 5-0, but even 4-1, and have a chance to beat them and knock them off and put yourself in a good place. And wouldn't you know it, we did drop the one to Miami, but we've rebounded since, back-to-back dominant wins over SEC West foes. Both teams enter 4-1. This is a big week. How are you feeling about it, Chase?
Feeling great. Uh, this is probably silly for me to say, but it's the reality. I going into this season said, okay, if we go in 4-1 to Bama, which game would I want to lose? And I circled Miami, and I said, at least if we lose to Miami, um, you know, then we don't have a conference loss. It might be that we're struggling as a young team and we're putting the pieces together and seeing some growth between Miami to through Arkansas. That would be ideal. So I think this is the second best scenario, right? If we The best scenario, of course, would be undefeated going into this game. Second best
Right.
scenario would be dropping that game to Miami, especially because Miami seems to be really good this year. So they're every week they're proving that they're a better and better team. So hopefully that will continue. If they end up going and running the ACC, suddenly this isn't that bad of a season,
Yeah.
and so um, I feel much better going into this game 4-1 having dropped that game to Miami than I would had we lost to Arkansas.
Yeah.
Had we beat Miami and lost to Arkansas coming off of a loss there, I'd be worried. I'd be worried if we dropped the game to Auburn. Um, so so for This is the second best scenario I feel like we could be in at the moment, and that's the exciting part to me.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're spot on there. If like everybody wants to be undefeated, and if it wasn't going to work out that way, then losing the game that's not a conference game is as much as that sucked and was painful to experience. Um, they have taken steps to fix the issues that we saw in that game, and they've been playing much better,
Yeah,
especially on the defensive side of the ball. They're 2-0 in conference, and not to get too far ahead of ourselves here, but everyone in the West has a West loss or a conference loss, I should say, except for Bama and A&M. So
hmm
if you can go out and get a win, in your home stadium this Saturday, you're in a great spot to win the SEC West for the first time, and with the change in the conference, probably the last time that there's going to be an SEC West. So
yeah,
go out and like there's they could still lose to Tennessee or Ole Miss or LSU or any combination of the three, or anyone else on the schedule except for ACU. But this puts you in such a great, like, it gives you two steps up on Bama basically. So that's huge. And then if you can start stringing together some wins and get to Atlanta and go against a Georgia team that looks a little more mortal than their past couple of years. There's no telling like what you can do with this season. But
right.
for right now, for this week, the focus is on the Crimson Tide. I guess before we get to that, we can recap some from this last week.
Yeah,
Chase and I were actually in attendance at the game in a suite courtesy of Ashley Home Store, where my wife is employed. Uh, we don't have sponsors, but go shop at Ashley.
yeah. Thank
Uh,
you, Ashley. We really appreciated the tickets,
yeah,
and great people over there at Ashley Home Store.
yeah. So it was the two of us, our wives, and our buddy Grant Dickey. We it was mixed company in the suite, so we weren't too obnoxious. I feel like I was I'd get fired up when we made a big play, but I tried to reel it back in and not like we're in mixed company and try to be professional and
Yeah,
not be too crazy. But it's you watch this defense, it's hard not to get fired up. Like they're just
it
it's
is.
it's so dominant these past 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I think that's what I'll say just to get started here. If you're not on the bandwagon, if you're not excited about the season yet, it's your chance to get on the train or it's gonna leave the station, right? Because I've said all season, and some people ridicule me as being a maroon colored glasses type person, and that's fine. At the end of the day, I am an Aggie, and I want the Aggies to succeed. What's the point of moping around about, oh, it's going to be another rough year? It does nothing but make it not fun, right? So at least enjoy the little things along the way. And I said from the time that we beat Miami or lost to Miami that, okay, well, this of all of the losses that I can remember during our time in the SEC, that was probably the one that I felt the least demoralized about. And I just felt like, okay, hey, we went out, we played well, but they played better. That's just the way that I looked at it. I think we underestimated them in certain ways. I've beaten this dead horse for a while, but now I think, after the last 2 weeks, people now are starting to come back around of like, oh, hey, we might actually be really good. Yeah, I think we have been all along. We just lost to a good team, and I am so much more confident after the past 2 weeks how we've played. I'm very fired up at how our defense has progressed. There's still a long way to go. There's still things that we can improve upon, but I can't think of another time where I felt more confident going into the Alabama game, and that's strictly based on how our defense played this past week.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that last statement on confidence level going into this game. There's so many, pretty much every time in the past, it's hey, they're better than us. Like clearly, we know that and recognize that. But if XYZ happens, then we might have a chance to beat them.
Right.
Not the case this year. Like this is as evenly matched, from a talent standpoint as it's ever been between these two teams. And I would actually give A&M a slight edge, and like
Yeah.
just from the like how dominant they've played in the past few weeks. But in that game against Arkansas, that building is like it's like the laws of physics uh, change when A&M plays Arkansas in that building, and there was some of that. Like there was like there was balls get batted in the air in return for touchdowns.
There's two
There
pick
was
sixes, like
yeah, 2 pick sixes. There was fumbles.
a
I
kick
think like
return touchdown
yeah,
or a punt
yeah,
punt return touchdown.
yeah. There was
Um,
still some weirdness in there, no doubt about it. But after the first few drives, I was like, yeah, we're gonna win this game pretty comfortably. Like
yeah,
even that first drive, like our defense was killing Arkansas on first and second down, and then they'd kind of wiggle their way out of it or like just barely, convert a long third down and move the chains. But it was you could tell it was a struggle, and they were just kind of barely getting by.
right.
And like the defense was like held them to a field goal, and we go down and get 7 on our first drive. And even after the pick six to start the second half, I'm like, I am not worried. Like we're going to win
Yeah,
the game. I've got
right.
no doubt about it. And
Yeah, I
it,
felt I felt the same way.
it's been a while since I felt that way about an A&M team. Like even in 2020, I'm like, I had the confidence in our defense most of the time, but the offense, would stall out, at times, and could get into a back and forth game kind of here and there.
Hmm.
But pretty much since the second half of Auburn, I'm like, I would like just in those 2 games, I'm like the way that we are playing, eh, like A&M is not going to lose these 2 games. Like they're being too dominant, and over the course of 4 quarters, they're going to be victorious.
Yeah, I mean that was my initial reaction, which I know I told you in that first quarter, is if we're dominating them so much on the defensive line in the first quarter, just wait till the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
Just wait until they're worn down, and then that's whenever you really like. If you have a good defensive line, you really see that come to fruition in the fourth quarter.
yeah,
And for us to dominate from the very beginning of the game and just nonstop. I mean, and it was that way with Auburn. Like the past 2 weeks, the way that we've seen our defensive line play, they've played how we expected them to play with that many 4 and 5 star, D linemen. We should have been doing this all along. We should have done it against Miami. But
Yeah.
looking back against Miami, partially, I don't think we brought enough pressure on them. We've talked about that before. But the other part would then question, well, maybe they just have a really good offensive line. Maybe their offensive line, because I mean, their quarterback was back there for hours, and
Yeah.
just it was just like he had all the time in the world. That was not the case the last 2 weeks. Last 2 weeks, they couldn't get anything going. Bryce Anderson's been playing out of his mind, especially
Yeah.
whenever he's rushing the quarterback, and Edrin Cooper too. Like a lot of these guys have just really shown up and shown out, even outside of the defensive line. And so um,
Exactly.
the way that our defense is played now, we need to stop giving up those long balls. They shouldn't convert on 3rd and 18. Like if we can get them to 3rd and 18 on 2 sacks in a row,
Yeah.
okay, don't let them convert the next play. I mean, come on, there's one more play, and then we're off the field. And so we got to shore that up. But outside of that, I mean, we're we're looking really good at dominating these offensive linemen, and that's the key thing that I'm going to say about number one. I'll say that about Arkansas. I just don't think that they had the stuff to put up against our defensive line. That was their Achilles heel. Um, but I don't think Bama's O line looked good at all.
Yeah, and it's definitely a step up from Arkansas, but I'm glad you said that it's not just the defensive line because it's exactly right.
Hmm.
Uh, this defensive line may be the best in the country. It's probably in the top three, but this front seven might also be the best in the country.
Yeah,
Uh, Chris Russell played the best game of his career, I thought, the other
yeah,
day against Arkansas. Edgerrin Cooper's playing like an All-American. Obviously, Torian York just continues to improve as a true freshman. And then Bryce Anderson, even Dalton Brooks, is getting in some time at nickel and playing in the box some. But when you combine like the defensive line with those linebackers and those kind of those DBs that play in the box, I don't know if anybody's playing better football than them right now. Like I've gone back and I've like obviously like we watched football all day the other day, but I go back and I watch some of these Bama games and Ole Miss and Mississippi State and LSU, and there's a stark difference in the way this A&M front seven is playing and the way everyone else is playing right now. Like
yeah.
it's
Oh,
just
absolutely.
they're so, first of all, they've got a swagger to them. Like they are super confident in what they're doing, and it's just like every play they're in the backfield. I
Yeah,
mean, they're like aside from Miami when they went max protection and kept 8 guys in the block, no one has slowed down this front seven, and
yeah,
they're playing so aggressive and so clean. They're tackling super well. Guys like Shamar Turner, Fadil Diggs, in their third and fourth years, like those guys are just so dang strong. And like Shamar Turner tackled Rocket Sanders with one arm the other day.
yeah.
I'm
Just
like,
grab him, pull him
that's
down.
freaky stuff right there.
It is, and that's where I will say this for especially for people who do listen to the podcast regularly, uh, the things that I'm going to say in retrospect to the Arkansas game, the Auburn game as well. So the things I'll say about the defense were the things I was irritated about week 1 and 2. They were the things that I'm like, you mentioned we tackled really well on Saturday. We did. We gang tackled too. You just saw guys just rush to the ball whenever we finally got them, started. And so that's really good. You compare that to week 1 and 2, we were missing arm tackle after arm tackle, and it was wearing me out. In week 1, I kept thinking like these we shouldn't be missing these tackles. Not
Yeah,
not against New Mexico, right? Like we should not be missing these tackles.
and hitting
Uh,
guys with the shoulder and not wrapping up.
yeah, and they were flying all around. If you remember, that was our big thing. Like, man, there was some big hits. Yeah, but they weren't wrapping up. and
Yeah.
that was really worrying me. Well, then that reared its ugly face against Miami, where we were doing the same thing, but we weren't wrapping up. And guess what? Those guys weren't going down. And so that was one of the main reasons that we struggled against Miami is we couldn't get guys down. They would get an extra 10 or 15 yards after contact because we would miss the tackle. And you just didn't see that as much. Now, I'm not saying that we hadn't missed any tackles that can't be cleaned up. But what
Oh
I
yeah.
am saying is that's been a strength over the past 2 weeks, and it was a weakness the first 2 weeks. What does that tell you? Development. That
Yeah.
that shows progress, which goes back to what I was just saying about which game would I rather lose. I would rather lose against Miami because then we can show that we've made some progress going in Alabama. We have a lot to be excited about. We have a lot to play for in this game because you beat Bama and now you're the team to beat in the SEC West.
Yeah.
And think about that for those of you who have been so critical and saying that we need to fire DJ Durkin and we need to do all this. I've seen you on Twitter. Think about how you felt back against Miami, and now 3 weeks later, we're sitting in a position that if we win this game, we're the team to beat in the West. That the whole season's in front of us. So I mean, come on. Like
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. Now is the time to get on the bandwagon. You want to be excited, you want to have a great season, come on, get on. I'm not saying that we're going to win this week. I hope that we win this week and I think we will, but you know, it's very possible that we lose. It's very possible that we lose other games this year, but you know, it's also very possible that we run the table or only drop one more game, and that's very possible for this team that's the way that they've been playing the last 2 weeks, anyways.
Yeah. No, I think it's spot on, and like the the game plan against Miami from Durkin, maybe deserves some criticism. Well, he dang
Sure,
sure deserves some praise after these last couple weeks
exactly.
and getting things right, and figuring out how to use guys and the best way to play this defense, because it's been super impressive. Back over the summer, like coming into the season, we thought, hey, this D line is probably going to be, pretty salty. We weren't really sure about the linebackers. Like we
Yeah,
we knew they had ability, and like Cooper had shown flashes, but the way that Cooper and York and even Chris Russell are now playing, and the way Durkin is using them, like Cooper off the edge is just like he's back there in an instant.
sure.
Um, uh, like I think he's like leading the country for tackles for loss or something like that. But those guys playing as well as they are just raises my expectation for this team and for this defense. Like we knew the line would be good. We didn't know that the linebackers would play this well, and they're playing as good as we've seen Aggie linebackers play in some time. So I've got a few stats here as we kind of shift into this A&M defense versus this Bama offense. Um, these come from my old coworker and friend Parker Todd on Twitter. This is havoc rate. So havoc rate is a havoc play, I guess I should say, is a pass broken up, forced fumble, tackle for loss, or sack. Um, over the whole number of defensive plays. A&M is number one in the country in havoc rate. Bama's defense is 31st, so that's pretty respectable. But havoc rate allowed, the A&M offense is 39th, so not not elite at not allowing havoc, but not like pretty respectable. Bama is 111 at allowing havoc rate. Um, they have a lot of negative plays,
Yeah,
like Milrow is stupid fast. Like the kid can fly at quarterback when he gets on the run, but dude takes a lot of sacks and throws picks, and like even their running backs will get hit in the backfield and be tackled for a loss. So like the offensive line is while it's not a bad offensive line, but it's not like it's not anywhere close to where they've been in the past, especially 2020 when they had one of the best offensive lines ever. And these guys are very susceptible, to uh, what our biggest strength is, which is our
yeah.
front seven. So
Well, that's where that's my my outlook on this game and why I would probably favor us and why I'm excited about this game and really confident. Again, the most confident I've probably ever gone into a Bama game feeling. And it's simply because, there's a lot of people that saying Bama's not Bama. That's fair, but that's because Bama has been so absolutely elite for so many years that you just walk into the season expecting them to be elite. I mean, and so just because Bama's not Bama doesn't mean that they're not a very good team. They're still a very good team. They're just not they're not the absolutely impossible giant to beat that they've been in the past. And so where are their weaknesses? Well, their weaknesses are on the O line and on the offense in general. I mean, their offense just can't seem to get enough stirred up. A lot of the reason because of Milrow and their offensive line. Where are their strengths? Their defense. Their defense is pretty good. I would say I would go so far as to say their defense is good. It's
Oh yeah, for sure.
probably maybe one of the best defenses, if not the best defense we've gone against so far this year. And so, they have strengths at defense. We're, I think, going to struggle more on offense this week than we have so far this year. I expect that again because of how good their defense is, but I think we see a similar defense to what we've seen over the last 2 weeks on the defensive side of the ball. I think this is going to be a defensive struggle more than anything else. And whenever you look at our offense versus their defense, or their offense versus our defense, we have the edge. I
Yeah,
mean, we win that, and so if that's the case, I think this is very much in our favor.
yeah. No, I've got a couple of uh, of notes on this A&M or this Bama offensive line. So the right tackle, number 65, I believe, Latham, uh, probably a first round pick. He's definitely the cream of the crop. Um, third year, third year guy. Just what's weird about this Bama line is how big they are. Like they average like 330. They have three guys over 350, which you just don't see in at any level really. But
Hmm.
Latham is one of them. Uh, he's incredibly strong and will move guys in the run game. He doesn't give up hardly any pressure or sacks most of the time. When he gets his hands on you, it's pretty much over. Very interested to see how he handles a guy like Shamar Turner, Fadil Diggs, and those guys and moving them around. On the other side, they have a true freshman named Caden Proctor, who he's also 6'7", 350 plus. He's probably going to be a really good player eventually, but really really struggles to set the edge in pass pro, especially against speed. So I would expect to see a lot of what we saw last weekend with um, guys like Chris Russell and Cooper coming off the edge, and even I think this could be a big game for Eni White uh, off the edge as well. I think he matches up really well with their left tackle. Um, Interior, their next best guys are left guard Tyler Booker, their other 350 plus guy. Uh, he's he's good, but against not as good teams. Like
Hmm.
against Texas, he kind of struggled some, and Texas has a pretty good defensive line, a lot like A&M's. So I'm anxious to see. Is he going to be a stud? Is he going to lock our guys up, or can we push him into the backfield and create some havoc with McKinley Jackson, Walter Nolan? Center and right guard are probably the two weak spots of the group. Um, just they're decent players. They've started for a long time at Alabama, but they're just not really elite level players. And I think there can be some pressure up the middle, you know, by our defensive line. But with a guy like Milrow, you really need to be sound, which we've been pretty good at, is like really, collapsing that pocket and pushing those guys in and backwards and corralling Milrow, not leaving a wide open lane for him to run. Because if you do that, he's going to run for 30, 40 yards because he can do that.
Yeah, but look how we played against KJ Jefferson, right? Like,
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
that's if we can play exactly the way that we played KJ, then we're in great shape against Milrow, and so that I think is what gives me confidence because like you go back to last year, our Achilles heel was running quarterbacks. We
Mm-hmm.
could not stop them, and it just wore me out. And I'm not saying that it's like perfect this year, but
Jackson Dart converted like 10 third downs
oh
against
my
us, it felt
gosh, it
like.
was ridiculous. And I don't remember which team it was. Might have been App State. Their quarterback just kept converting on us, and it
Who's
just
not even that mobile, but we still
yeah.
let him do it.
That we made him look like a Heisman Trophy winner that game. And that's the thing is um, I just do you see as many comparisons between Bama's offense and Arkansas's offense as I do? Like they have
I, I do.
they're just very similar in terms of their structure, and just that's I think why I'm so confident is how bad we just shut Arkansas down this week. It makes me just think, okay, well, do the same thing this week, and we're going to
Right.
be in good shape. You know.
Yeah. No,
Um,
there's a lot of similarities. And there was maybe, I think on that first drive, there was one play where we kind of left a gap open. Although I think Shamar Turner got held pretty bad, and that wasn't called.
mhm.
But KJ had a pretty open gap to get out and run for a first down. It is really similar, and that's I think KJ is a better passer than Milrow, but Milrow can throw the deep ball,
Yeah,
and they've got a couple guys that if you leave him back there too long, he's gonna let one loose and he's gonna connect on a couple of those if you let him hang back there. But where I think KJ is a lot better is the kind of short to intermediate, those quick, like just your regular, just quarterback play, like those quick
right.
and intermediate routes. Uh, I think Milrow really struggles to find the right guy and struggles with accuracy in those routes. So the only thing is he's a lot faster than
Yeah,
KJ. Like he's an elite athlete. So yeah, I think I think yeah, you should. I think we'll see a really similar game plan and just try to just kind of keep him corralled back there until somebody can break through and get him on the ground. Which it this whole game I'm trying to not get too optimistic and just be like, oh, we're gonna shut their ass down completely because much like Arkansas, like they still got guys. Like Arkansas still has Rocket Sanders and some pretty good receivers. Like they still made some plays on us.
yeah.
I don't think we're gonna shut Bama out, but I don't see a world where Bama scores like 30 points on us.
I don't either. And that's the other thing. I mean, Bama they've had two road games so far this year. And road games you have to really like you have to give a little bit of an edge there. Anytime that you go on the road, it's going to be harder for your team. One of those games was USF. I don't know why they played at USF, but they did.
It's a great question.
And they didn't get a touchdown until the fourth quarter. It was tied 3-3 for 3 quarters in the game. And against USF, now they played pretty good about against Mississippi State, but I just don't think Mississippi State is that good of a team
They're
this
they're
year,
they're not.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I've said that before. I give them a pass based on everything that happened with Leach, but I just I haven't seen Bama be put together enough. They did play well against Ole Miss. I'll give them that. Like that was a fight for them, but they pulled it out in the end. But there's just been so many things in question their entire season that they come to Kyle Field, us that is, our season is progressing and getting better and more exciting. Them, they're still trying to figure stuff out. And you don't want to be in a position where you're trying to figure stuff out and you go on the road.
Yeah.
That's just not where you want to be.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up because in Milrow's career, like the only true road games he's ever started are the two this year. Well, actually, he didn't play against USF. They started the other two guys who were terrible. But he did start against Mississippi State. But, yeah, they got the cowbells and it was a night game. But Jalen Milrow has not seen an environment on the road like he's going to see on Saturday.
Yeah.
I kind of wish it was a night game because I feel like we really like. I'm sure it's going to be raucous and one of the best ever, no matter what. But um, I think I would expect it. I would expect to see some some false starts from Alabama and confusion from them. Like it's when they're on offense, it's going to be loud. It's going to be crazy. If we get a sack, that place is going to explode. I should say when we get a sack, we've been pretty good about
Yeah,
that.
pretty consistent on that.
But it's gonna explode. It's gonna be so loud, and I can see him. I can see it maybe being a little bit too much, and
Yeah.
uh, you know, I think where I've kind of settled in is I think our defense, as long as they're not put in bad situations by the offense, which we're about to talk about them, I think they hold them to 17 or less,
Yeah.
and I think like they have like Bama's got some good players. Like I think Milroe's an explosive athlete. I actually think their tight ends are pretty good, and their receivers are you know good for the most part, but they just don't have that first round, no doubt. Amari Cooper, Julio Jones, you know, uh, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith guy. Like they've got a bunch of really good receivers, but none are just like, oh my god, we can't cover that guy.
Right. Right.
Um, but it's going to be a test, and something that I meant to bring up, and I'm glad I just thought about this is, some of those sacks on KJ, I think were coverage sacks because you could see him like we didn't get to him immediately every single time. Like
Yeah.
he would kind of sit and like you could see him kind of pump fake and like he was trying to throw, but he really didn't know where to go. And I think we had good coverage, and they got some nice weapons at receiver. Arkansas does so. Um, I think like outside of the one long ball where they got the touchdown at the end, kind of in garbage time. I think our DBs passed that test. They've got another one coming up, and I think they passed that one too.
Yeah. No, I agree with you there, and that's where I think we played a lot of complete defense. The Our third down defense was what we struggled on, but I think we just bent a little bit. We didn't break. We just kind of gave them more space than we need to. Now against a team like Bama, you got to kind of take that. You can't have that. You've got to take those opportunities, get them off the field, get our offense on the field, because that's the other thing you mentioned. We're about to talk about offense. The offense isn't going to score every um,
Every
drive.
drive.
I mean, it's just not going to happen. And so you have to give them as many opportunities as you can as a defense. But we're in a position right now where we have a lot to play for, and you got to understand from as much as the players and coaches try to coach speak and say, block out all that noise. That's just rat poison. We don't care. We're just worried about us. We're just focused on going 1-0 this week or whatever you want to say. They are paying attention. You can't not pay attention in this world nowadays. You've got social media. You've got all these distractions out there. You have ESPN on every TV in the Bright complex at all times. You're hearing what they're saying, you know, and when you have that first loss of the season, more times than not, it is demoralizing. It's like, man, there goes our season. Um, we had the benefit of we lost. LSU had already lost, and right after that, we watched Bama lose. You know, and so now here we are, where we've got these three teams, all with one loss. Suddenly, our loss doesn't really matter as much anymore. It's just something that happened. It sucks that happened, but hey, let's get better, and everything's right in front of us. And so when you're seeing Bama struggle against USF, and I thought they played decent this past week. But you're seeing this shootout between Ole Miss and LSU. You're seeing Auburn almost beat Georgia. I mean, they that was very close to going the other direction. And when you just got done beating Auburn, right? And so you're seeing all this suddenly. There's not a single scary team in the SEC at all. Like it just doesn't exist in the SEC. There's nobody that you're looking at as a player saying, "Man, they're so much better than us." Suddenly you're looking at it saying, "Hey, we can go toe to toe with all these guys," and that's where we're standing right now. In order to get there, the next 2 weeks are vital, right? We've got to beat Bama. We've got to beat Tennessee if we want to make that next step. But
Yeah.
if you if you win these next two games and you go into a bye week and you're, you know, what are we now? 4-1. So
Six and one.
you're bowl eligible going into the bowl week or into the bye week, and it's still October, right? Like now suddenly the rest of the season looks really really fun, right?
Yeah,
Because
I may start checking prices on hotels in Atlanta
oh,
for.
if we win the next 2 weeks, I will buy one like just as quick as you can call it because I I'm not so sure that Bama like if we beat Bama, I'm not so sure that they don't drop one more, you know?
Well,
And
yeah, and like I was gonna save this for the like the around the country kind of deal here in a bit, but there's a lot of like good games left in the SEC.
oh
Uh,
yeah,
Tennessee plays Alabama the week after they play us, so like
right.
so one of them's gonna lose. Ole Miss plays Georgia this year. Um,
Oh, I
Alabama
didn't
still
know that.
plays, yeah. Bama still plays Ole Miss and or Arkansas and LSU. LSU still plays Florida, and Florida still has to play Georgia at some point, and there's just like there's a lot of football left. Tennessee and Georgia, who's going to win
And
that one?
Kentucky and Georgia
Kentucky
this
and
weekend.
Georgia this week.
Yeah, I mean Kentucky Kentucky's 5-0. You know, they could very well go into this game and beat Georgia
They just
and
waxed Florida.
yeah, they're on top of the SEC East, you know,
Yeah,
and so I mean, crazier things have happened, right?
yeah,
Like that then the whole then what do you get? Then you get all these people around the country. Oh well, y'all are only winning because it's a down year for the SEC.
oh yeah, I'm already ready for it.
Yeah, get ready for it because that's what if teams that aren't Alabama or Georgia do well in the SEC, it's a down year for the SEC.
Yeah,
That's a load of crap, right? Like so that's coming if we do well.
yeah. Well, and we went and dominated Auburn, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, Auburn sucks. Auburn's the worst team in the SEC." Blah blah blah. Then they go toe to toe with the number one team in the country
Yeah,
the very next week. So maybe A&M's just a good football team. Has anyone
maybe
thought of
so.
that? But I like what you were on a while ago, and I want to kind of get into that mindset of this A&M team and these coaches and these players, and this matchup against Alabama. Because back in the day, sometimes just playing the Bama uniform was intimidating. Like you're
Mhm.
like, oh my god, like that's Bama and Nick Saban, that's Jonathan Allen and Derrick Henry and like all these like that's Tua and Bryce Young and Jalen Hurts, and it would it would intimidate teams and they would lose, and they play scared.
Right.
Uh, this A&M team beat Alabama 2 years ago, a much better Bama team and a much worse A&M team, um, and then should have beat them last year with
Yeah.
our worst team in 20 years,
Right.
in their house. And these players, I love hearing Anaya Smith talk about how personal it is for him. McKinley Jackson, who Alabama finished second for, like all these guys that have been on this team and played in that game and played well, they're licking their chops this week for this game to be here.
Did you know Anais had an older brother that played at Bama?
I did,
I did not know that until I was watching the press conference and one of the
and he wanted to transfer to Georgia and they tried to block him.
well, I read that whole thing this
Yeah,
week. So yeah, it's definitely personal for
yeah,
Nice. Nice has been I guess I've just kind of missed that, but he's been like vocal since he was like in eighth grade about his hatred for Nick Saban. So that was
yeah.
super interesting to me. That's probably why he was a 3-star recruit. Um, but you know, on the topic of Ananias, it was palpable the amount of just sheer will that he had this past week.
hmm
He we would not have lost this game no matter what because Ananias wouldn't have let us. Like every now and then you'll see that from a player and it just is really exciting. But like it's really hard like you wouldn't think that you could feel that emotion just by watching a guy in pads. run the ball. But every time he got the ball, he was on a mission,
Yeah.
and that was both on his punt returns. And I mean, he caught a lot of balls this week. I don't know how many exactly, but I mean, he played well, and he was pushing guys off. He was playing out of his mind, and you could
He made some
tell
good
that there
blocks
was,
too.
yeah, you could tell there was just a passion to how he was playing this past week. Now, a lot of the people were asking him about, this was the game last year where he got hurt, and how much of that went into it. And I'm sure there was some of that went into it, but I think part of it is also that he's been kind of quiet this year. Like he's been making great blocks. He's made, a couple like very needed plays when they needed to happen. But he hadn't gotten a touchdown this year until this week, and so he's been more of a team player this year than maybe in the past. And I'm not saying he's always been a really good example of like what a team leader looks like, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that he's not a team player. It's that he's really showing what it's like to be selfless in the game of football so far this year because the ball's being spread around, but it's not going to him, and yet he's still the leader of our offense, And so I was number one very excited to see that he had such a great game, but I will be shocked if we don't see the exact same thing from him on this coming Saturday.
Yeah.
Like I think you're going to see so much energy just emanating from that guy that it's just going to make everybody play better.
Yeah. I mean, in the year that we beat them at Kyle Field, like they had taken the lead, and Calzada, like they're leading the offense down, like down the field to tie the game, in the fourth quarter, and Anais Smith, uh, absolutely cooked Brian Branch on a little slot fade, and Zach hit him, and touchdown tie game, and we end up winning. But Brian Branch is killing it in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
like like Anais Smith is just a damn good football player, and like he's played well against Bama, in his career in the past.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we didn't even have him in that game last year, so I bet he's itching for another crack at them. So, um, you know, guys like him and the guys we talked about already, Layden Robinson. I, I wrote this down a while back, but when I was rewatching games from last year, it was a rough year for Layden. He had a high ankle sprain to start the year. He never was quite right, and he struggled quite a bit. But when you put on the tape against Bama last year, Layden was playing his ass off, like
Yeah.
just knocking dudes back, firing off the ball. Like you could tell, like he was up for that game, and that was in a down year, coming off two straight losses. And I think this whole team's going to be up for this game. And you know who else is these coaches. And you know, even if Jimbo Fisher was still calling the offense, I would feel confident because
Yeah.
Jimbo would save all of his best plays for the Alabama game every year. it never failed. So I can't imagine what him and Petrino are cooking up right now.
No,
And
it's going to be great.
yeah. And after the game last week, we watched some of the other games at the bar in Irving, wherever that was. And I was talking to that guy from that Arkansas fan, and he was like, "Man, I love Petrino. Like he's doing great things for y'all." He was like, "Who do y'all play next week?" I was like, "Oh, we play Bama." He goes, "Petrino never beat Saban when he was at Arkansas, and I bet he's dying to get one up on him because I
Yeah.
think they came close to it in 2010, and they lost by like 4 points, and they had a great team that year. So um, I would bet that Fisher and Petrino have, I'm sure they scouted the other teams and game plan for the other teams, but I bet they put a little bit extra into this game. I think.
Oh, I guarantee it. I as much as they'll tell you that it's a faceless opponent and that we're just worried about us, and all that kind of mumbo jumbo. This team, everybody in the locker room right now is, there's going to be all kinds of passion and excitement and people being like, man, like we're playing Bama this week. Like you got like there's going to be all kinds of accountability going on in there. I've been there. I've seen what it's like on Bama week, and then I see those same guys go and talk to the media and say, this just is it's a faceless opponent. Like, no, it's not. It's Bama. Everybody knows it's Bama. We have a lot to play for. We lost that game last year on the 2 yard line. You know, in our worst year, that if we would have made those 2 yards, if we would just run the damn ball, then we would we would have gone to a bowl game. I mean, it's that simple. And so we need that one back, and we can get that one back on Saturday. And so there's excitement there. There's excitement of we're we're tied for first in the SEC standings right now. We've got the one non-conference loss, but we're tied with Bama without having a conference loss, um, and we're unranked. I mean, think about that. Tied for first in the SEC West currently, and we're unranked. We're not even 25. You don't think that pisses those guys off? I guarantee that pisses those guys off.
Yeah.
And so if they win these next 2 weeks, suddenly we're going to vault to the top 10, maybe. I don't know. And
Most likely.
and so then here you all of a sudden put some respect on our name, kind of mentality. That's the mentality that I guarantee you is in the locker room right now. I
Yeah.
hadn't been in there. I don't know, other than I know what it's like behind the scenes, and I know good and well they know that they're not ranked, and I know good and well that they're not happy that they're not ranked, and I know good and well that they are being coached by Petrino, by Jimbo, by every coach in that Bright complex, saying, "You want to be ranked? You go out this Saturday and you beat Bama. You show them what we're about. You show them what we do. When this helmet goes on the field, hell's coming with it." That's what you're hearing this week, right? I guarantee it. I haven't watched the polls. I'll go watch the polls here in a minute.
Yeah. Same.
But I guarantee they're fired up
Yeah.
for Bama. And I think if we beat Bama, guess what? I think we're going to be fired up again for Tennessee.
Yeah.
And then you got the bye week for them to say, hey, look, here we are. We got 5 more games left in this year. Let's go win this thing. It's all right there in front of us if you can do that in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's a big if. That's a big if. I'm not assuming it's already done, but I like our chances big time right now.
Yeah.
If anything, I'm more worried about Tennessee than I am Bama.
So I'll put a pin in that for now, but I've got some thoughts on Tennessee later because I'm kind of with you on that.
Yeah.
Like I'm not chalking it up as a W right now, but we spent a lot of time on the defense and on the team and the culture and the coaches and the motivation they have for this week. But let's spend these last 10-15 minutes here talking about this Aggie offense.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy because a week ago we found out we lost Connor. We haven't even talked about that on the show yet because
that's true.
It happened right after we recorded. But I found myself not really thinking about it after this weekend. The way Max Johnson played in the first half and even some of the second half, I mean, he came out on absolute fire, like just accurate passes left and right, just throwing bullets. And, it was really impressive. Like, I didn't know really what to expect. Like, he looked great last week.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, that's one half of football. Like, we don't really know much, but he was super impressive, for most of this game. Now, he had 3 turnovers. Well, I guess 2.5. I don't know who to count the bad snap on, but the pick was kind of a weird play where he was throwing to Moss, who wasn't really looking, and they just kind of capitalized on that. Obviously, we can't have that happen again. So
right.
I'm sure they know that. But and then I love that he loves to run. He's actually a pretty good runner when he gets out in the open. But just have to protect the ball a little bit better, and I think he'll be fine. But
I think he needs to protect himself better. He needs to start playing as if he's a quarterback that does not have a backup.
Yeah.
Because I mean, quite frankly, that's kind of where he's at, and
Yeah.
and so he needs to play that way. Because I love to watch him try to truck a guy to get first down and instead of being 1 yard shy. I love that. Not in week 5, not whenever we just lost our starting quarterback. Not in a place like that. He needs to And I guarantee that he's heard that all week long. I guarantee they've been drilling it into him.
Get
Hey,
down.
yeah, get down. Don't go. You fumbled that ball because you got a helmet to the wrist. And what would have
Yeah.
happened if you'd have broken that wrist? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so I think that's I guarantee that's been drilled into him this week. He needs to. That's the only thing I could say about his game so far that he needs to change.
Yeah.
Um, and that's an easy fix. But um, yeah, I'll say this just briefly on Connor because you mentioned Connor.
Yeah.
You know, I hate injuries with a passion, and I really hate season-ending injuries. Those are always the worst. So my thoughts are and prayers are with Connor. I hope he comes back strong. That's a hard injury to deal with. However, um, as part of that, I will say there's no benefit. Like if you're excited about Max Johnson, there's a lot of reason to be. He's a really good quarterback. And we knew that coming into the year. We have two really good quarterbacks that both of them can get us wins. But it does nobody any benefit to try to say, "Oh, well, Max is the better quarterback anyways."
Yeah.
Like don't
Yeah.
step on the guy while he's hurt. Connor's hurt. He's out for the season. That's it. Next season, we might have a quarterback battle, right? If I guess Max still has eligibility to come back. I don't know.
He
Um,
does. I think, and I don't know him personally or know what he's thinking, but I feel like the rest of this year, he's playing for the NFL. Like, I think this is his fourth season, and Connor's a really damn good quarterback. So, you
yeah,
know, go out and get 9, 10 games of really solid film, and then try to go to the NFL and get drafted because he's got all the tools, and now he's got the opportunity to really take advantage of that.
yeah, and I guess that's what I'm trying to say is like there's no point in even arguing that.
It's not,
So
yeah, exactly.
let's not. I've seen a little bit on Twitter, and I just don't think it ought to be out there.
Yeah.
Because next year, guess what? We're riding with Connor. So like
Yeah.
you're gonna look stupid if you're out there saying, oh well, Max is a better quarterback. Even if that's what you think, just you got your wish. Just
Yeah.
just leave it be.
Keep it to
Um,
yourself.
but that being said, I think I've been a little bit worried about Max up until he had to start because I guess because he's been playing it behind our second team O line. He just hadn't looked as put together this year
Yeah.
until he came in Auburn, and it was like, okay, yeah, we're in good shape. We got a guy we can run with here,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think he's a really good quarterback, and now we did see some things this past week that is is a result, I think, of having a new quarterback in the game. So you saw several drops this week. I think some of that has to deal with the cadence and knowing where the ball is going to be and when, and catching the ball from it's going to have a different touch depending on who's throwing the ball, and so um, there's some of that goes into play that I think as the season progresses, you're going to see that. So it's perfectly fine to be frustrated with receivers dropping the ball. I of course am as well, but understand that that's really where it's kind of coming from. They're
Yeah.
now playing with a new quarterback that they're not accustomed to catching the ball from, or at least haven't been over the last 2 months, and so now that it's going to take a little bit. So I would expect you to see some drops again this week and maybe even next week. But I think as we come out of the bye week, that would be the expectation is okay, now we need to be in a rhythm where our receivers and our quarterback are on the same page at all times.
Yeah. And I think it was Ja'Day Walker that had like maybe 3 or 4 drops,
Mhm.
and but we've seen him make like outstanding catches and like just like he's been pretty sure-handed through the first 4 games. Uh, you know, he had a rough day on Saturday. It
Yeah.
happens, but I'm not going to write him off and be like, oh, this guy can't catch a cold, and like
Right.
he sucks. Like I think he's a
Uh,
great player. He's gonna have a great year
Some
for us.
some people might, but that's just because they don't watch enough football or understand it well enough, I guess. But that's the thing is, he had some drops, he had an off day. Maybe part of it's that he's with a quarterback that he's not used to catching the ball from,
Yeah.
and maybe some of it's that he's jettisoned into a game because Evan Stewart went out hurt,
Yeah.
right? And so then maybe they knew coming into it that his rhythm with Max isn't quite where it needs to be, but he didn't have a choice. So
Yeah.
but you know what I'll say? In his defense, I'm defending him from the standpoint of it's not necessarily his fault. Does he need to catch the ball? Yes. It's his responsibility to do that. But I'm not going to put the blame on him for all of those drops. That's just, hey, let's get better. He's still a really good receiver. He's proven he's really impressed me this year. Of just kind of come out of nowhere to me.
Yeah.
But really, like, that's the first time this season that I feel like I could really like be um what's the word? Nitpicky to the
Yeah.
offense. Like
Yeah.
the offense has just been so clean, or at least our skill players, that I've just been just enamored by how much we can spread the ball out. We can get it into, we got three different receiver or running backs that we can get the ball to, and they all look equally as good as the other. We've got like seven different receivers that we can spread the ball out to that all look equally as good as the others. And it's just, I've, we've wanted this for so long and we finally have it. Like I feel like we have that offensive skill that we need. We've just been without the whole Jimbo Fisher era.
And they just look they look put together. Like
Right.
like the first half against Auburn, like I was a little frustrated because like it just seemed like things were just a little bit off.
Hmm.
But since then, and like every other half besides that one, they've looked pretty dang good.
Yeah.
And like they don't have a lot of three and outs. Like they're never like, oh my god, like what are we trying to do? Like it's like they tend to move the football pretty well. And like on Saturday, it was a drop pass would end the drive, or you know we'd be just a little bit short on something, or we have a turnover, or something like
Yeah.
things like that are fixable. But the offense itself and the way it operates and how they're executing is pretty dang good right now. And that gives me a lot of confidence. Like it's been a while since I've had that level of confidence in an A&M offense to really just go out there and get the job done. It's what they're doing. So
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. And that's the other thing I'll say to that. Um, did we have another 11 a.m. start other than Auburn? Because the other games have
uh
been night games, haven't they?
yeah, I think ULM was 2 or 3, and it was
Yeah.
like I think it had a rain delay too. So
So other than Auburn and Arkansas, Auburn was our first 11 a.m. start, and so I pointed out we called a timeout the second game or second play from scrimmage because we were confused on offense. Like that's when you're going off of the script and here's the
yeah,
plays that we're going to run. So for us to be confused at that part, it was like, what in the world are we doing? I've never seen anything like this. It was 11 o'clock in the morning, and you got to understand that like those guys are going to the team hotel and they're getting up at a certain time. They're doing walkthroughs in the morning. They're loading all their stuff up. They're headed on. They do their little walk, where they put their suits on and do their little walk and go inside, get ready for the game. And so, I mean, just think about how you feel at 8 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning when you got to get up early, as opposed to when you're coming in at 2:30 in the afternoon. You're ready to go, right? So some of that, to your point, that's about the only time that first half of Auburn was the only time that I didn't feel just ultra confident about our offense. And I can make any excuses for them. I can say, hey, well, that was also our first 11 a.m. start.
yeah,
There was some kinks that we needed to iron out there, and I think we did. As I'm still confident that, which again, this I need to listen to my own preaching here, but had Connor come in that second half, I think we would have been as good as we were,
yeah,
with Max. I think it was just a matter of we needed to go in the locker room and say, what in the world are we doing? Let's get it
yeah,
together, guys. Let's get on the same page here.
yeah,
So that's to your point. We just look put together for the most part. And yeah, I haven't had this level of confidence in a A&M offense in a long time. And
Yeah.
that goes back to I know I'm saying a lot here, but that goes back to how I felt during Miami, where even up until like 5 minutes left in the game, I still felt like, oh, well, we're gonna win this game.
Yeah.
I was still very confident, like, yeah, it shouldn't have been this way, but we're gonna win it when it's all said and done because I just had so much faith in our offense and how
Yeah.
they were playing that and I have not felt like that in a long time, probably since 2013,
Yeah.
2014 maybe.
Yeah. Until Miami ran the kickback, I was like, yeah, we're still going to win the game, even though we haven't played that great.
Yeah,
But like I think after that, it kind of put it like it put it out of reach. But
agreed,
you
agreed.
know, this offense doesn't really go three and out that often. They move the ball well. They you don't see a lot of that. Running the clock down to 1 or 2 seconds, looking to the sideline, not knowing the play. Aside from that one you just mentioned, calling timeouts and being confused, like they know the offense, they know what they're doing, and I think Petrino has really been calling some great plays, especially on third downs. He's been very good at dialing something up to get us to convert there. But in terms of the matchup with Bama, I like all the running backs, all three guys we got, but I thought Le'Veon Moss really started to separate himself, and he caught the ball well too. But
Yeah.
like some of those runs that he had, where you know he just finds a crease and gets through there and is going downhill, and he's kind of tough to bring down when he gets rolling. And thought he ran very physical, and I think you still see a bit of a committee, but I think he's going to start to command the lion's share of the load, and rightfully so. Like he's played extremely well. I thought the offensive line improved week to week. Um, they missed some blitzes and things like that against Auburn. Uh, they played pretty well against Arkansas, and Max had a lot of time back there. And what's impressive to me is they don't really get beat physically. Like if they do get beat, or if we do allow pressure, it's from a blitz where we, either don't communicate, or we miss a guy, or something like that, or they just bring more than we have. But like, in the past, our guys would just get physically whipped. That's not really happening hardly at all. And a couple of these guys, Trey Zune in particular, are playing just damn good football right now. And against a team like Bama, they got some good edge rushers, and I think Trey Zune versus Dallas Turner may decide the game, at least as far as our offense goes. So that's a matchup that I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. Will, I'm gonna have to cut us short here. I've got tornado warnings going off at my house, so
Okay,
we got a pretty bad storm rolling in. So
I got you.
I haven't been able to look at the weather, so it might actually be a tornado. So anyhow, hopefully it's not.
Yeah,
Let's hope
yeah.
not. But my
Hope
dad
you
is
guys are
now
okay.
calling me, so I have a feeling that something's going on. So
Okay.
anyhow, really excited about this week. This is going to be our week. I have never felt this confident going into Bama, and well, let me rephrase. I haven't felt this confident in 10 years going into Bama because I felt this way going into 2013 Bama.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is going to be a fun week, and yeah, we'll see you next week, I guess.
Yeah. Appreciate it, Chase, and y'all stay safe. I'm gonna hang on for a couple minutes and Josh paid it for a few minutes and get some of these other notes out there. But
Sounds good.
thanks for joining for sitting down and getting this thing off. It's the biggest game of the year so far, and I can't wait for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll turn off our
Our banner.
deal here. That way you can go by yourself. But I'll see you later, my friend. Take
All right.
care.
See you, Chase.
All right.
All right. So, as my friends would say, it's just me, Autumn, right now. So, if you're still listening, as always, appreciate your business and appreciate you listening to us. But yeah, I'm so fired up for this game. I've just got too many notes to not get out there. So, um, Bama's defense, corners, corners are really damn good. Um, our our receivers are gonna, have a tough battle on their hands. I think they can, still get open and have a good day. But uh, I think Petrino's going to have to call some things to kind of get them open, and because he's the corners for Alabama, McKinstry and Arnold are locked down. Malachi Moore, their nickelback, uh, plays in the box quite a bit and makes a lot of plays in the run game. Pretty good player, and obviously Dallas Turner, their star edge rusher, probably a first round pick. Uh, will be tough. I'm really interested to see him and Trey Zune battle it out because Zune has been awesome at left tackle for A&M. Their other guy, Chris Braswell, he's a really good player, but just not quite to the elite level that they've had. Definitely a step off or step down from Will Anderson, but still a good player. Where I think they're vulnerable, and what I'm interested to see is up the middle, and not something that you typically see from a Bama defense, but their interior guys and especially their inside linebackers aren't what they've had, uh, through most of Saban's tenure. Um, their interior guys, they're big, they're kind of hard to move, but they don't really disrupt a lot or really get upfield or beat double teams. And their best linebacker, number 32, Deontay Lawson, he's out. I think for this game, he's missed the last. He got hurt against Ole Miss, missed last week, so we'll see if he's back. But the other two inside backers that have been playing, number 30 and number 17, um, they can get out of position sometimes, and you know it's always been tough to run on a Saban defense. But I think with the way Moss is running and the way that Petrino can dial it up and the O line is blocking, I think we might can do it. So maybe look early on in this game to test that a little bit, see if we can get some quick hitters and quick yards on the ground. But you know, all in all, they're still a great defense and probably the best one that we faced. So it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be a low scoring game. Maybe 24-20, 24-17, something like that. Hopefully in A&M's favor. But last thing I'll leave you with is some statistical analysis from some stat guys in college football. Uh, Intriguing outcomes for these games. So um, at Stats of War on Twitter, his name is Parker. Pretty good follow on Twitter, but his model has A&M winning the game. They it's stats, so they use it's not like perfectly round numbers. There's decimals, but he's got A&M 25.5 to Bama's 21. Um, and then Bill Connolly, kind of the godfather of college football stats, he has Bama by half a point in this one. So super thin margins, very should be a very tightly contested football game. You're seeing some national folks come around on A&M, and I don't know if I should feel good about that or if I should feel worried about that. But we do better when we are kind of the underdog. But we'll see. Maybe this team is different. Maybe this year is different. Um, you know, I think if I had to call my shot, I think A&M pulls this off, and I think it's in the neighborhood of 27-13. So um, maybe not the most likely, but there's definitely a scenario where A&M wins this game by double digits, and that's what I think happens, to be quite honest. So um, we'll see. May get back on here next week and eat crow, but either way, we're gonna have fun. I cannot wait to watch this game. I've been, trying to break it down all week. But thanks so much for listening. Of course, we get a big rush of listeners as soon as I'm about to get off of this thing. But thanks for listening. If you're still here, like, subscribe. Um, check us out on YouTube and Twitter, everywhere else. Also, check out my offensive film study on good bull hunting. Went up earlier today, and beat the hell out of Bama. See y'all next week.